you.
And I'm Mark Noble. I'm the Aspen Discovery team lead at Bywater Solutions.
I'm Adam Brooks. I'm the West Coast International Sales Consultant for Bywater Solutions.
All right, well, thank you everyone for joining us. We do have a chat box here as well as a Q&A portal. So if you have any questions during the session, we will be happy to answer those. And then we will have a live demonstration at the end of our presentation, followed by some Q&A. So with that, we will jump in and get started.
Okay, so by way of background, at Uintah County Library, we have a regional history center, community archives, that has been collecting things for about 40 years and digitizing things for about 20 years. And we've worked with regional partners, notably the University of Utah, who's just been amazing. And we've been through kind of every iteration of digitization of local history photographs, oral histories, all kinds of wonderful things. And you know, we felt pretty good. We would tell our board, hey, we've got 30,000 things digitized at the University of Utah, and we're putting all this resource into getting this stuff out there. And we kind of patted ourselves on the back, and that was about the end of it. We keep scanning things. And then about a year and a half ago, this one guy, he discovered our collections online, which is great, and he starts sharing them widely on Facebook, and they just exploded in our local community. And as we looked at the comments, people were saying, "Hey, where did this stuff come from? I didn't know this was out there." And unfortunately, the guy didn't point back to us and say, "Hey, this is all at your library, your regional history center." So we began the conversation with Bywater Solutions and Mark Noble about ways that we could use Aspen Discovery to better highlight some of this amazing content that people just didn't know about. We dug into the numbers that the University of Utah had, the analytics, and our collections were getting about 100,000 hits a year, but near as we could tell through looking at the analytics, of only about 1% or even less than 1% of the hits were coming from people with the ISP in Uintah County, in the area we serve. Now, some of that's a little fuzzy and hard to tease out, but even so, it showed that we had a major disconnect between what we had out there and people's ability to find it. And so that was the start of the conversation. We have clipped newspaper articles, we've got all kinds of local books and digitized content, and we've hosted these things in a variety of sources, and we just wanted to find a way to put it in front of people's eyes. And that's what we've done with Aspen Discovery. So we've essentially created a one-stop shop for our local history, and it's something that's easy to use, that we don't have to spend months and months training volunteers on how to use the system. For most people, an orientation of about 15 minutes, and they're good to go. Aspen Discovery is very granular with what kinds of permissions you can give to people. For instance, we'll talk a little bit about genealogy and adding obituaries and things like that to the system. Some of our volunteers only have access to be able to do that. Others who are perhaps more experienced and trusted might be able to edit some of the information instead of just add to it. But it's a great way, Aspen Discovery is a great way to involve the citizen historians out there, the local history, family genealogists, and people just interested in history with their community. And that's kind of the background, at least on our end.
Perfect. So for those of you who may be new to Aspen Discovery, I'll talk a little bit about that. Aspen was developed as a way for libraries and users to easily find the information that you're looking for. A lot of times you have to go to separate spaces to look for e-content or digital archives, or essentially website information. So Aspen gives you all of that information in one place, allowing the user to come in, find what they're looking for with, of course, Ferberization, which is record grouping, enabling them to find the type of content they want in one record. And then, of course, being able to accurately find what they're looking for based on that relevancy in the results. The main goals behind Aspen Discovery are really to make sure that your patrons can find all of the library material in one location. It's so crucial in today's environment that our users come in and find what they're looking for, whether it's an ebook from Overdrive or it is something from Hoopla, or it's something on the website about new hours or curbside pickup. So, being able to integrate all of that information on your underlying ILS and then, of course, from those content providers is so important. It's also making it as easy as possible for patrons to use. A lot of times when we're showing Aspen to potential users, it's easy for them to kind of explore Aspen just by taking a look at it. So it's really crucial that it's easy for our patrons to use as well. And then finally, making it really flexible for both staff and administrators to come in and customize Aspen for both their library and if they're part of a consortia, giving it their own look and feel right within the platform.
All right, let's go ahead and take a look at some of the functionality within Aspen Discovery. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and then we can kind of go through the functionality within the archives. So this is Aspen Discovery at Uinta County Library, and we see we have the ability to browse things, and we've got a prominent search bar. So let's start by searching. So if this is somebody that knows that they're searching the archives, they can choose to search the archives specifically. And those search types then are specific to archives. So we can search by keyword, by title, by subject. So for example, if we wanted to search for rodeo, we can do that. Let's see. I've got a comment that the screen isn't maximized. Is it maximized for other people? Jesse?
Okay. Yeah, it looks good to me, Mark.
Okay. Let's see. So looking for rodeos, we have the ability to search specifically by the factors that are relevant to the archives. And we're using Open Archives, the OAI PMH methodology to load these. So we're loading information about each of these, including types, sources of them, publishers, dates, and then being able to search by that. We didn't want to do a federated search. So if you just searched for rodeo, you would get everything, because we know that most users, when they're coming to a library catalog, they do want to see primarily books, movies, that kind of thing. But if you're doing a specific search for archives, then we can do that. The facets are also specific to the archives. So this gives us an ability to really have a first-class search experience for archives, in addition to a first-class, best-in-class search for library materials. So we can limit based off the collection, so we can see the Thorn photographs. We can select multiple if we want. We can choose the type, so whether it's an image, we can choose subjects. So we can look for the little buckaroos. And if we want a couple of those, we can too. so we can see images of those. Clicking on any of these will take us straight into the digital archives platform, where these are stored so that people can zoom or print or that kind of thing, get more information about it. We do, though, want to connect it to the search results from the catalog. So in this case, we have an Explore More bar that does have books about the rodeo. So we've got a book on rodeo, 3 books on that. We can click into catalog results to see all of the results. So this gives us a nice, easy way to go back and forth between catalog results, archive results, kind of help patrons to discover areas that they wouldn't normally see, while still getting the best search experience possible with each of those searches. And then if we look at the catalog results, we see kind of the same thing. We've got the rodeo and the history center materials, a book on Aloha Rodeo, and then we get the digital archive results. So we get that information in both places. And Sam, did you want to talk about browsing?
We're brave. We can do some of this in live screen sharing here.
Yeah.
See if you'll pass it over to me.
Do you want me to just run the screen for you?
Oh, sure. Go for it. If you look at, okay, I'm just gonna kind of go back.
I'll go ahead and stop sharing for you. Go ahead and share.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Now that'll work. Hit the button here and okay. All right. So we should be seeing something nice here. So we wanted to highlight our local history collections, and one of the main features of Aspen Discovery is the ability to browse into things, whether it's books, you name it. We saw an opportunity to add the ability to browse some of our archives, some of our oral histories and things. So for example, we've been talking about rodeos. Last week we had a big rodeo in town. One might question the wisdom of mass gatherings right now, but it happened. And so since we had all these rodeo people in town, we wanted to highlight some of our rodeo history. And so this is something that's really easy to set up. Basically, you log into the system, you search for a subject that you are interested in, river running, and choose archives in this case. And it gives me things that I can choose from. And if I wanted to add that to a browse category, I'd simply hit this button that says add to browse, choose which category that it shows up in, whether it's nested or whatnot. In this case, here's my river running browse category. So that's kind of a fun way for people to view the collections. Jesse, I'm going to pass it back to you so we can kind of pick up some of the slides.
You got it.
Thank you. We have been just totally impressed with Aspen Discovery and the things that we've been able to do with it as far as integrating our archives. Again, people just were not seeing these collections, and we spent so much time and resource on making them available that if people weren't using them, we had to do something about that disconnect. And it just so happened that one of the things that's been saving for us is we had to close down, like many places, for a couple of months. And we made this big push to put a lot of our collections on, get them indexed through Aspen Discovery. And can you go ahead and advance to the browsing archive slide. There we go. Thank you. Most of the users are starting with a just general catalog search. Might be searching for, again, the rodeo here. And so we're presented with the book results and some things from our downloadable media. We use Canopy and a few other services like that, Hoopla. Those are all indexed here so that they can be searched alongside our local content. And then that Explore More bar has just been an amazing gateway to other things that a lot of times we didn't know, or that patrons just don't know about, that they didn't know we had. We've put our clipping files online, and there's just a really nice way. We've had MARC records for these things for years. And in fact, we kind of date back to the days of classic Dynex in the 90s, and we had MARC records for these things. And basically, it was a tool used by the staff to search and find things. And until very recently, it was almost like this secret that we had these clippings files, and the people, the regulars of our History Center staff and volunteers, they knew about them. They knew how amazing they were. But not very many other people did. And so now we can put those things online. People can view them, they can download them. We can create cover images. We'll show you how to do that here in a second, upload cover images for things. Now here's a good example of what one of those folders looks like. You know, this is a clippings file. In Aspen Discovery, we simply search for the folder that we want to upload, and once we find it, we log into a staff view and we upload the PDF. And that's simple. There's no extra metadata we have to enter at that point in time. It's just there. So like I mentioned earlier, someone with a good 10-15 minute orientation and the right permissions can do this and can be up and running. With the lockdown, my public services team basically didn't have anything to do for a while until we figured out curbside delivery and some of those other things. And so our historian approached us and said, "Hey, we've got this project. Can someone please help us get these PDFs and upload them?" And so that's what a lot of our public services staff did during the shutdown. You know, they had access to the files, they had access to the catalog, and so they've just been putting them up. And this is just my pet project. I'm just so tickled with how this is working, both as an administrator and as a user of it. I want to share some of that with you here in a minute. But we wanted to touch briefly on some of the genealogy components here. When we started our work in archives, the best that we could do to share genealogy records was to clip the newspaper and put those in a file and index the names to it. And some of those folders that we've shown kind of represent that approach. Aspen takes a more direct approach where you can upload information about burials, basic genealogical information right into the system, and then it's searchable alongside the rest of the content that's indexed in Aspen Discovery. So essentially, if you're looking for Llewellyn Brown Cook, you're going to be able to find everything that we have on that person in Aspen Discovery. You no longer have to search 6 different databases, and you may find just some amazing surprises as you're running those searches. And I think Mark's going to tell us a little bit about the magic behind all of this.
So one of the real challenges with having all of these different sources is kind of trying to pull them all together in a way that makes sense to patrons. And part of the way we do that is with user lists. So in this way, a staff member or a volunteer could create a list about a specific topic. So Doris Karen Burton is she was the founder of the Uintah County Regional Center. She was a former director of Uintah County Library, and the library has lots and lots and lots of great information about her, but it's hard to see in one place. So what we wanted to do is be able to create a list that could bring together all of the different resources. So on one list, we can easily add information from the archives. We can easily add different books and materials from the catalog. We can even add lists to a list. So we can say, here's a list of all of the books that she wrote, all on a list itself, so that you can kind of do a little bit more to help people understand and use those resources, so kind of form some research guides. These materials, so the lists, when you search the catalog or the archives, that Explore More bar will show any lists that you have. So if you searched for Doris Burton, you would be able to see this list and get more information about it easily. And these can also be promoted into the browse categories as well. So in addition to being able to do, to browse all of your archives or all of your catalog, you can browse a list as well. Some of our materials don't fit nicely into either the archives or the catalog. We don't have MARC records for them. They're not really digital objects. So we wanted to give the library ways to promote things like the museum. So we added what we call placards, which just give you the ability to promote a resource. So in this case, if the library searches or if the patron searches for Uintah County, they're going to see a placard about the Uintah County Heritage Museum. So it's one more way that we can kind of direct people to resources that aren't used as much. Sam will talk a little bit about adding information.
Okay. The sharing figured out here. All right, so find which one of my bazillion tabs here I've got. This is a result for a local family that I happen to be researching, the Galloway family. This guy was the first fire marshal around. He was also a bit of a mountain man. We have clippings file about him that happens to have some handwritten notes from a researcher. We had some volunteers scan these in, and it was just kind of quick and dirty scanning, with the idea that a lot of the people that use these types of things print them off. In fact, there's some really old genealogy records there, dot matrix. But coming back to this, this is a system generated cover image, and I want to do a little bit more than that and add a cover image that hopefully will give it a little bit of visual appeal. Now, hopefully the graphics designers out there give me a little bit of a break, because I made this myself. So I want to click into the record, come down to staff view. I have to be logged in to do this, which I am. I'm going to hit upload cover, find the cover that I want to use, and Aspen Discovery stuff looks promising. Going to upload the cover. That's it. Now, in a few seconds here, it'll refresh and the cover will show up. Kind of like waiting for paint to dry. So I'm going to show you another one so you have an idea of what this looks like. Sit away. Let's try this one. And that's another great thing as the search suggestions that come up here. Okay, so this is another folder from a different thing, but it's the same kind of idea. I made a folder that hopefully is a little bit more visually appealing. And this is important because if this shows up in a browse list at some point, then there's going to be a more visually appealing again picture to look at. And a lot of people do judge a book by the cover. Whoops. And if I wanted to upload a PDF image of this, it's the same kind of thing. So here's this this folder on the Golden Age Center. I come into staff view and upload PDF version. Give it a name, Golden Age Center clippings file. That's what we call our senior center. And I'm going to find the PDF that I want to upload. Okay, we've got all kinds of things in an online drive here. Find the right one, maybe. And this is kind of not scripted. This is very much how the workflow works. Oh, I'm off by 2. I don't want to do that. I want folder 44. And let's just use this file initially. Upload PDF and uploaded. And now you can see that's almost immediate on that one, that there's the clippings file that's shown up. But you may have noticed that there were several other ones there. And so I want to come back in here and add another PDF from one of the other ones. And there's an ability to delete these and remove them and change them. So I'm just going to do Golden Age Center 2. Browse back to that same folder and exercise your brain. That looks like a good one. In fact, I'm going to call this Exercise Your Brain now. Maybe. But in the spirit of live demos, I hit a button and lost that for a second, but it's not much to come back in here. And select the PDF you want to use. Exercise your brain, there it is. Upload PDF. Okay, it refreshes. Now when I hit view PDF, it gives me an option for which one. So some of you that have things like annual reports from various government bodies or clubs, this is a good way to put those on, or issues of a journal. Again, there's the option to download, but that is essentially how we go about adding content to this. They're very granular permissions again, and because it's open source software, if you see something that you feel like, oh man, this is important to us, if it could only do this, we are actively seeking people who want to partner on different projects and things related to that. There's a growing Aspen community that we hope that you can join.
Yeah, and along those lines, we've got a bunch of reporting capabilities, and these are things that we're always looking to extend to see what else we can report on. So Right now we're reporting on number of searches, so we can see we've got 20,000 searches of the catalog, so grouped work searches are searches of the catalog, and 63 searches of the archives this month. And that's something where obviously we know less people are looking for the archive. So that's, again, going back to the, we don't want to do federated searching and kind of put too much archive stuff into the main catalog for the people that don't want that. But for those people that are using it, it's really valuable. And that's at least 60 searches of things that people wouldn't find. We also have tracking of how much the records are being used. So how many people are viewing those. And that's whether those are in the Explore More and Browse categories, in search results, so we can see who's using them, who's clicking on them, that kind of thing. And then those PDFs that Sam's uploading, who all's looking at those, how many are being downloaded. So we've actually got quite a few PDFs being downloaded. And these have, Sam, you just started uploading those like a month or so ago, 2 months ago?
Yeah, just really in the middle of the, about 7 weeks ago, really, yeah.
Yeah. So we're starting to see really good resource usage, so that we can kind of tell where do we invest resources. Another important thing to say about this is this does not require Google Analytics or anything, so it's all tracked internally to Aspen in an anonymous way. So we're not tracking specifically who's downloading Senior Center PDFs or anything. So a nice way to do that. We are seeing some good usage of Google starting to crawl these though, and starting to see some of the unique content within Aspen. So getting additional visibility of that.
I think the next phase in development that we want to support is kind of building in a little bit more back end for things that don't fit well with your typical ILS. It's a very open vision, expansive right now. So we're just chipping away on bits that make sense to us and things that are priorities to us. Personally, I'd like to see oral history, better genealogy, or just additional genealogy stuff. Some talk of looking at family search or ancestry APIs and seeing how, again, this is a kind of a niche thing. For those that are in this niche, it's hugely important that we can get these systems to drill deep down locally and then talk to each other and maybe give someone a way to export what they're finding to their preferred like genealogy tool, family tree, or whatever it might be. We've also had volunteers over the last 60 years that have indexed the local newspaper. And that index is, it's very useful. We also have the newspaper digitized. And the digitized newspaper, it's been OCR'd. This isn't indexed right now at all by Aspen Discovery. So this is an area where we could explore and say, hey, let's search the local newspaper. The beauty of this volunteer created index is we're not relying on AI, we're not relying on, if the OCR worked out right, it's experienced volunteers. It's like the original crowdsourcing, right? Volunteers that have indexed this paper. And so we're trying to work on figuring out how our human generated index can mesh up with the images and things and potentially have those into Aspen. History and video, audio content. Again, the goal for one-stop shopping, if I'm researching Prinster Brothers, let me see the oral history, let me see the list. And again, with the list, there's a remarkable ability for us to curate some of that information that, hey, this is a really good resource and maybe it's underutilized, so let's throw it in this list. One other thing that we're looking at is, and this is probably more of a community-wide thing, there's the Internet Archive out there, which is just absolutely amazing. They've done a fabulous job and really lowered the bar for people to have the ability to put things online. The one drawback is searching can be very problematic. And so I'm curious to see how the much better searching of Aspen Discovery and these kind of tools could be applied to locally relevant portions of the Internet Archive. All this aside, Mark, what do you think are some of the most compelling next things you see on the horizon?
Yeah, I think definitely all the stuff that you were talking about. I would love to see more connections between content. So right now we can kind of use the user lists to connect content, but being able to see some of that in more places. So to be able to say, hey, we're looking at a picture of the rodeo. Let's look at either additional archive content. So maybe here's a newspaper story about that specific rodeo that we get more information on, or here's a book written about the area, or the book written about the river runners. So some of those connections while you're seeing an individual item, as well as doing more of the research guides. So be able to create a page where we say, here's some additional background information about a person, about a subject, to be able to add additional context to it, and then bring together some of the resources that the library has. So I think whatever we can do to help patrons discover and use this material is really, really beneficial.
Definitely. So all this time, I've mostly been eyeing Aspen Discovery and Koha as a library administrator. I'm a big proponent of open source software. I love how you can kind of get in under the hood and see how things work and swap out things, code if you need to. Recently, though, I've been researching for an exhibit that our local heritage museum is working on about a guy named Nathaniel Galloway. And this has been my first real deep dive into research in some years. And I've been using Aspen Discovery to do quite a bit of that research for myself. And so one of the things that I'm finding is, as I'm doing searches for the guys that were on this riverboat with Galloway, I'm finding content showing up in that Explore More bar that's just blowing my mind, that I had no idea. I also found out yesterday that 2 weeks into this deep dive on this Nathaniel Galloway project, that someone did basically the same exact project with the same exact approach. But at least now, thanks to Aspen Discovery, I know that, so I can alter my approach. But we've indexed the Utah Historical Quarterly in Aspen Discovery, which is for us the major regional history journal, and it's online in a state system that is a little. It's just a dated system, and the searching natively is just terrible. But this is what we're finding, is just the amazing searching and browsing abilities of Aspen Discovery are just helping turn up these things that, yeah, they've been available online, but no one could find them if you didn't get that keyword exactly right, or if you didn't know which one of these 100 subpages on that government site to get to find the information, you weren't going to find it. And I think that until March, at least in our state, maybe some of these barriers were there by design, because in a sense that if the system's a little hard to use, it justifies it justifies, you know, me to pay for 10 people who basically only do searches for the public coming in. For many, many reasons, and I apologize if I'm being insensitive here, but we've had a reality check for so many reasons. Not only can people not get in to ask that person, you know, and I'm not trying to undervalue expertise, you know, expert searchers I'll take any day over a system. But when that's not an option, or you can give that expert searcher an even better tool and just increase their ability to serve more people. I think that's what we're finding right now is, you know, how can we use these tools better? And this is certainly one way. End of rambling monologue.
I love the real life scenarios, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit too. So, you know, one of the best things about open source software is really how quickly you can get things to move within the community. Mark and Sam have both talked about, you know, real life scenarios or things that have come up while they were searching, or things they want to tweak in Aspen to make it easier for our patrons to find things or for staff to do their workflow. And so just some of the things like being able to give that support to the developers to bring back and put right into the platform are some of the highlights that drive open source software. You know, issues can be addressed quickly and be launched in the next release. You have companies that are able to support and maintain the software rather than having to do it in-house. And then of course you have users all over the world that are providing that feedback. You know, one of the best things, just a couple weeks ago, Mark and I were talking, and in some of the presentations that we were doing for Aspen, in the integration with one of our providers, content providers, we noticed that images weren't showing next to the description. And within a couple weeks, Mark was like, Jesse, we got that into the next release. And it's just amazing to me that through feedback of what libraries want to see, all of that can be made possible. So it's truly librarian-driven development, because you give the feedback of what you want to see and what makes it easier for our partners. So if you're interested in seeing Aspen, we can absolutely get something set up for you. Just let us know, and we could give a deep dive into Aspen and how all of the aspects work within it. But most importantly now, let's answer some of your questions, and we can do a deeper dive into how things work in Aspen. So with that, I know we had a few questions that came up in the Q&A, and we'll answer those now.
Yeah. So I think the first question let's tackle, a couple of people had questions about, is this an archive platform, and can you, let's see, is it a product platform for future museum cataloging or user interface platform, and can you do batch uploads of JPEGs and respective XML metadata files? So this is a discovery platform that is using whatever archive system you have on the back end. So Sam, yours is, I'm trying to remember the name of yours. They'll have a uniform API.
We are using one created by the University of Utah called SOFAL, but they use the Open Archives Initiative. They follow those standards. Most of the metadata is in Dublin Core. And then we're also likely in the next year or so to index some information from Past Perfect, which is what our local museum, which is also part of the library department here, uses. That's on the horizon, and that's it's not open source, that one, but it's a very inexpensive, low learning bar type museum management platform. This is not an official endorsement of any product or software besides Aspen Discovery and Koha.
And other people are using things like Content DM, Islandora, so kind of whatever archive platform you're using, we can expose those records and make them easier to find for people, while still giving your librarians a tool that they're familiar with.
We also, that state records, what do they use? Archivalware or something?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're indexing from there, but pretty much any vendor or company that follows a OAI standard, we can index, and then a lot that can't, as long as you can get access to your data, and we can map some fields across some things.
And I guess we should also say that if you have a bigger archive, so like Sam was mentioning the state government documents, there are tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of records in there, some of which aren't super relevant to the Uintah County area. So we did do some restrictions based off some keywords, as well as restricting by individual collections within the larger collection. So you can kind of really control what information is shown and what isn't, which is nice for bigger archives that maybe you don't have complete control over. And then there was another question about, is it possible to search PDFs in their text? And does Aspen Discovery allow OCR for related PDFs next to like a handwritten letter? So that's kind of, as we talk about open source discovery, that's one of the next things that we're tackling, is being able to do some indexing of those PDFs. And that's where it depends a lot on the PDF. So some of the PDFs that Sam was showing today are a little hard to read at times. The OCR software may not get them right, so we need to have librarians or volunteers do some transcriptions. So we need to make sure that the software allows for that. But definitely that's on the horizon. And for anything that's already text searchable, we want to make that available too. So if we give this presentation again in a month or two, then maybe that is a feature that we'll have, but definitely on the near horizon.
You know, one of the things that we're cooking up, it's largely complete, is a forms builder in Aspen Discovery, so you can do surveys and things. And using many components of that same forms builder, it'll make it possible to allow users to authenticate and enter transcriptions and things like that. We're still working out some of the logistics of how that might work, how or if we would flag, hey, for a staff member, hey, there's a new transcription. Do you want to look at it? Some of those things that might initially work well, but if this takes off, it might not scale. But then again, our local history community is dedicated, but it's not huge. So that might be a good interim solution, is just an alert to a staff member, hey, there's this new work, someone want to take a look at it, or use a vetted volunteer who's established themselves as doing good work to do some of those things. And I realize there's a number of commercial systems out there and open source systems that help enable that. But I imagine if you check back, like Mark said, in the next several months, weeks, months, you might see that in Aspen Discovery.
And there was another question about being able to restrict access of content to logged in users. Right now, everything that's entered is, everything that's entered is publicly accessible. However, sorry, I'm doubting myself now. It's possible that we have already added this feature. If not, it's something straightforward to add to lock things down. But at this time, it is all open accessible. but restricting something to a user that was logged in.
Now, we do have kind of outside of archives, but with respect to various electronic resources like Hoopla, one branch or one system in our consortium, mine, provides that, the others don't. And so we're able to adjust it so that that displays only to those patrons who have access to that type of a tool.
And then there was a question about records being findable via Google search. It is something that we're seeing. We are seeing Google is indexing quite a lot more of the site in the catalog. We're starting to see searches coming to the catalog for more than just specific records. So we're seeing searches directed to the catalog for search topics, for author names. So we're doing some things to enable that in terms of publishing sitemaps. We'll continue to do more of it. I've gone back and forth over the years and how much I think we can get Google onto the site, trying to control what a giant company like that does is really hard. We do the best things we can for them, but we're starting to see more and more results actually getting Google onto the sites. We're getting significant traffic from Google for some sites for sure. So, and we'll keep doing more and more of that. So as we do more with like PDFs, if we can direct Google to looking at some of those, we will. And then there was a question about migrating data from Luna Imaging, the current digital asset manager tool, into Aspen. So it's probably not a migration. It would be making that content available. I'm not familiar with that one in particular, but as long as it has an OAI PMH harvester, we would be able to make it discoverable. And down the road, we might look at extending Aspen to have some of the digital asset management inherent to it. So obviously we're doing it with PDFs now. If we wanted to do it with things like images and other documents, oral histories, videos, that kind of thing, it's a possibility down the road. But for now, it would be making it discoverable through Aspen. So. And then the next question we have was about including programs in the catalog, and if anyone has done that. Sam, do you want to talk to that one? About including events?
Yeah. In fact, I think we could just show that.
Yeah.
Let me bear with me for a minute while I hit the right button. And hopefully don't share the wrong screen. Okay, so we've got a couple of options. We can hit the drop down and just search events. But I'm just going to do a search for adulting seems to be in vogue right now. Okay, so we've got some books. And then down here in the Explore More, we have an event. So that it's indexed. We use a provider called Library Market for our calendar, but we do index those. That was a development that we sponsored, and it's been pretty nice. If I come and just search for events, if I leave it blank. And I should get a list of anything that's coming up. There's a class that's going on right now. We do offer an adulting class, how to be an adult, financial fix for teens. These were all going to be in person. Now they're online, which is an adventure. Now there's a few facets. You can browse by if registration is required. what the status of it is, or category. Is it something that's just here? Is it something we've featured? Summer reading program is our current featured event right now. General programs, whoops. And then there's category types. So, but I think I saw, let's just do it. Now here's an example. If someone is searching for an event and there isn't anything, it's going to bring up the Explore More bar with some options. Our event calendar is a bit in flux right now. Obviously, we've canceled a lot of our events and activities, so there's not tons to show right now, but they are in there. They are indexed. Let's see. Oh, I can't spell today. Archaeology. Okay. If I search by archaeology, here's a good example where an Explore More bar is showing some events that we have coming up. It's pulling from the state government digital library journal, and then some additional events and our archive results. So if you're part of, I think one of the things that's great about indexing events and archives is if you're part of a community, you are likely involved in the event centered around the subject that you're interested in. Quilting. If there's a quilt class, you probably want to know about the new books and the movies and the events and anything else. So that probably, hopefully that didn't kill that horse. But again, I'm going for the Rambling Librarian Award. If you'd all vote for me in the comments. What other questions were there?
That covers everything that's in the Q&A now. If there's anything else.
Each of us are happy to answer questions. Okay, there's a lot of questions on the back end that Gregory Pierce had, and I think that some of those questions are best answered as a follow-up conversation with Mark.
Yeah, and I'll just say again, it's not an archive system, it's the discovery for the archive. So you would still need to use something like Islandora or Content DM. Those generally do allow batch uploads of JPEGs with XML files, but it depends on the archive system that you're using. This helps you discover and connect those resources. And then down the road, maybe we'll have that functionality within Aspen as well to do the back end part as well as the front end. But for now, it's the front end. Does that answer that question? Great. Any other questions?
One thing that occurs to me is because this is open source software and it was developed around the needs of a library, but there's nothing that would prevent someone or a group from kind of running with this and looking at some of our professional cousins in the museum world and archives more broadly. That's the beauty of open source software. And that's the beauty of working with, in our case, a support company like Bywater Solutions that has just been so willing and able and bending over backwards to address things that hey, I've got this crazy idea. And then that crazy idea shows up in the next feature or the next release, because it turns out that you weren't the only one that had that crazy idea and whatnot. But thank you so much for your time. Mark, Jesse, turn it back over to you guys.
Yeah, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. If you have any other questions that we can answer, our contact information is up on the screen. We'd be happy to set up a time to talk or show you one-on-one just how things work. This session was recorded and we will send it out to all attendees if you want to share it with any of your colleagues. And of course, it'll be available on the Bywater Solutions website as well as youtube.com. Have a great day, everyone, and we hope to talk to you soon. Thank you so much, Sam, for presenting, and Mark for your knowledge as always.
Thanks.